protests, rebellions. We're going to get into those later. Rioting, and even the threat of another war. We were thinking, this is not going to work. All these problems that this new government is causing, they were thinking of going to war against each other, going to war against the government. We're going to have a civil war in America because the first rule book wasn't working. And how do you think England was what were they were thinking as they were watching all this? Yeah, they were saying, look, you wanted your own country, you want independence. Now look, you can't even take care of yourself. You're about to have a civil war because your new idea called democracy isn't working. So we were kind of under the gun here to prove that this idea called democracy was really an idea that was a good one. Other countries are watching us too. If we fail at this point, then democracy fails. So they had to do something. So what happened was they decided that the Articles of Confederation, the first rule book, had to be changed. Had to be changed. So all the representatives got together again. They headed on up to Washington. To Philadelphia, and they created a meeting that was called. Okay, the Articles of Confederation had to be changed, and they had to give more power to the government. The government had to be given more power, which made a lot of people mad. Made a lot of people mad because they didn't want to go and turn into what? Yeah, they didn't want to go back and turn into England again. Anyway, so they get together in what's called the Constitutional Convention. They're going to go make some changes to the Articles of Confederation, A of C, Articles of Confederation. And all they want to do is make some changes. What happened was they end up throwing it away. They said, forget it. We're just going to toss this whole first rule book, toss it in the trash, and we're going to start from scratch. This is not working, so we're going to start from scratch. And so they got together, and they needed someone to come in and take control of this meeting, because this was going to be one of those meetings where people were going to argue, they were going to yell, they were going to call each other's names, they were going to just have a big old debate, ugly debate, just yelling and screaming and throwing things. So they needed someone who had the authority, had the respect of everybody, that can tell someone, okay, you're talking too much. Stop talking. Let's give someone else a chance. Someone to control the meeting and keep it from getting out of control. So who they call? Yeah, they called Washington. Now here's the thing about Washington. This is not in the notes, but let me tell you about this. Washington is the winner of the war. He's the one that won the revolution. His leadership and his strategies won the war against England. He was the winner. And in all of history, the winning general normally takes over as the leader of the new country. That's just the way it's supposed to be. You win the war, you are the new leader. That's the way it was in history. But Washington didn't do that. Washington realized what he was fighting for, and as soon as the war was over, he said, okay, guys, thank you for letting me be your commander. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to fight against England. I'm glad we won. Now I'm going to go home. I'm going to go home, and I'm going to go back to farming. I'm going to be a farmer. Thank you. Goodbye. He didn't take control of the country. He didn't become president yet. He was chosen later, but really he was retired. The war was over. He was done. He went home. And this shocked King George. King George heard about this and said, "What? George Washington is not taking over? He's retiring?" He said, "Wow, this really must be one of the greatest men in history." Something like that. He was really impressed with Washington not taking advantage of his victory and becoming the new leader. So that was pretty amazing of Washington, because he knew that this was the government of the people, and he did not want to be a dictator, even though he was offered the job of being the king of America. But he didn't take it. All right, so he comes out of retirement, and Congress comes up with two documents. The first document they call the Constitution, and the Constitution gave a lot of power to the government. I mean, a lot of power. The government can do a whole bunch of stuff. And right away, people started complaining and yelling and screaming and saying, wait a minute, you can't do this. You cannot create a rule book that gives all the power to the government. Because what happens? We're going to be just like England. And we just got done fighting England. We just got done, risking our lives. Some of us died for this cause so that we wouldn't have to live under a government like England with a lot of power. And here we are, we're creating another government just like England. So people started complaining and complaining. And so to make everybody happy, they decided to put another document along with the Constitution, which protected the rights of the people. Just in case the government abuses its power, they want to have some kind of protection for the people. And they call this what? Yeah, that's right. They call it the Bill of Rights. And this protected the citizens from government abuse. And I spelled from wrong. That should be form. That's form. It should be from. Okay, I'll fix that later. But that should be from government abuse. So the Bill of Rights protects citizens from government abuse. I'm going to fix it right now. On the screen. Watch this. Ready? Okay. Now we're going to continue recording. From. See if this works. From government abuse. All right, here we go back. There we go, it's fixed. So the Bill of Rights protects citizens from government abuse. And people like Alexander Hamilton said, hey, why do we need a Bill of Rights? We don't need a Bill of Rights. Look who our president's going to be. Our president is George Washington. He's not going to abuse his power. He's a nice guy. He knows what we want in this country. He won't abuse his power. We don't need the Bill of Rights. And what was the answer that they gave him? Well, you're right. George Washington won't abuse his power, but what about the next president? And the next president? And the president 50 years from now? President 100 years from now? How do we know that they are not going to abuse their power? So they said, we need to have some kind of document along with the Constitution that's going to protect us from just in case that president or the government starts abusing its power. And they call that the Bill of Rights. And we're going to get into that a little later. So remember those two documents, Constitution, Bill of Rights. I'm going to ask you in the test, what was the very first rule book of our country? And you're going to say what? Right. The Articles of Confederation. Learn it. It didn't work. It didn't work. But, you know, we threw it out, actually, and we started from scratch, and we came up with a document that worked. This document, the Constitution, has lasted since then, but, you know, hasn't been deleted or anything. It's the same Constitution. We've had a little bit of additions to it, but nothing really has been changed drastically. So learn that, remember that. It'll be on the test. All right. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Hang on and stay tuned for the next set of lessons, next set of notes, and get ready for the test. Test is coming up. So until then, this is Mr. Rangel saying, see you in class.